I appreciate presentations and all that, but I'm also a pretty practical guy. So
Yep.
I strip things down to the nuts and bolts. And here I'm going to just tell you what I worry about with a rocket. Right, number one, I need to see the rail buttons are going to keep the thing attached to the rail
Yep.
while it's going to go up. Right. Number two, pointy end needs to stay up.
Yeah.
That's an important one. Probably one of, if those two things happen, then one of the really important things, probably one of the most important things in my opinion, if those two things are successful, is at apogee, the airframe needs to be rendered aerodynamically unviable. Everything that you put up is, if you're not SpaceX or somebody like that, everything you put up is coming down, and we don't want it to come down near the speed of sound, right? So at least crack the egg in half, and people can at least then have an opportunity to get out of the way of the thing. Ideally, of course, we have the main parachute and a full deployment. So those are the things I'm going to worry about. That translates into, talk to me about rail buttons, talk to me about couplers and coupler and separation points. Talk to me about the electronics you got, and talk to me about your recovery harness.
Cool.
Those are the highlights.
Yeah, so we can jump straight to that then. So the rail buttons, the rear rail button is, so they're both attached with M5 screws into T-nuts. The rear, Thomas will just get his phone up so we can show you, although you won't, because the rear T-nut is internal. But the rear T-nut is epoxied in, and then on top of that, once that epoxy has dried, we've put 3 layers of 800 GSM quad-ax carbon fiber wet laid onto the inside of that, just to ensure it doesn't come off. I think in 2022 in the test rocket, the T-nut came off, so they had to perform some surgery before the test flight. But this is the method we did last year. We didn't have issues with it. The top T-nut is accessible from the front of the booster. It will also be epoxied in. We just haven't done that quite yet, but we're going to do that over the next few days. And then we will be putting blue Loctite on all of these fasteners, just so it doesn't vibrate out during flight, but also so we can take it off in future as needed.
Okay. Outstanding. That sounds good so far. Tell me about the distance between the rail buttons.
So they, I don't know the exact distance, but the bottom rail button is as far back as we can make it. The top rail button is where the center of gravity of the rocket is.
Let's see if this works. Where do you want me directed, James, first?
Just stand at the back and kind of point it up so you can see the whole length of the booster. So that's where.
Can you stop the presentation part, then to make the screen for me? Not that I don't appreciate that you made a presentation.
No, that is absolutely fine.
Oh wow, you guys do nice work. That's a pretty
Thank you. So that's where the rear rail button is, and Thomas, if you just walk forward along the booster, you can kind of show where the top rail button is.
Yeah, just point to where. Oh, there, it's on there. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's. I'm just going to spitball at least a meter.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I think it's 1.4, 1.5 meters.
All right. So there's kind of an important thing that happens when you put your rail buttons that far apart. There's what is the effective length of your rail?
Oh yeah, I see. It reduces the effective length because the top button comes out first. I'm not sure exactly what that effective length is.
All right. Well, that's going to be something that you're going to want to know. So before we say that might be a problem, tell me about the motor that you're going to fly.
We will be flying on an O5500X.
Have you already got that motor? You've purchased it?
So we put a deposit down with Animal Motor Works at the competition last year. I'm still in comms with him trying to get the final payment so he can pay for it. But his wife passed away recently, so just
Yeah.
trying not to put too much pressure on there.
Okay. All right. Yes, but make sure you have
Yeah.
confirmed motor.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So the
So
motor has our
5500.
name. Yeah, so the motor has our team name written on it. We made sure of that last year, so we should have the motor.
Okay.
But I have been following up fairly regularly, probably twice a week, to try to get that sorted.
Okay. So what is the thrust to weight ratio and the speed off the rail?
The thrust to weight ratio is 17:1.
Okay.
And
You're probably good.
yeah, the off-rail velocity is in the presentation. It is 154 feet per second.
All right. But that's based on a 17-foot rail. You need to do some math here.
Reduce it a little bit.
You're probably going to be just fine.
Yeah. So we did our test launch 2 weeks ago. And our thrust to weight was 14, 15. Off-road velocity was slightly lower. And I believe I sent you the video that the launch was fine. So I think we should be fine for competition, because the rail length that we used was the same length as the rail will have at competition.
Very good. Very smart. I like it.
Cool.
Okay. And you flew that actual rocket?
Yep, yes. We flew this actual rocket, which is why there's some scratches on the paint job from the launch rail. But we launched this actual rocket. It went to 21,000 feet.
Yeah, 20,163.
That number, Mach 1.4. And we had successful nominal recovery. Because there was no wind that day, it landed 200 meters from the launch site.
Yeah.
Nice.
So nice, easy recovery. And because the ground was so soft, it landed in peat and we had no damage.
Wow. Wow.
Just a bit of dirt, and a couple of scratches.
Perks of autumn.
It'll buff right out. It'll buff right out.
Yeah.
Landed on a fence.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Man, this is gonna go quick. So the coupler there that you've got, is that it's got air brakes on it?
Yes. So the booster couples there with the air brakes. It has 12 or 24. No, 18.
16.
16 countersunk screws on either side. The wall thickness of the air brakes is 4 millimeters where the screws enter. We will also, I believe, be Loctiting those screws as well so they don't vibrate out, although we've not had that issue so far. So both sides are rigid, bolted through. The only separation point during recovery is up where the nose cone is, because we're doing single bay deployment.
All right. Where are the flight electronics mounted?
They are inside the fiberglass nose cone.
Okay. So you're gonna have to reach up pretty high to get to those.
Yes.
About there.
Yeah, it's about there. Inside the nose cone. That's the similar design to what we've done for the past 2 years. I believe there was a ladder last year. We'll make sure that there is one this year. If we have to buy one, it's not a big
Is it
issue.
what now?
A ladder.
Oh, okay. All right. So we got a good coupler. We're bolting that together, so it's a rigid joint technically.
Yep.
Separation only up there at the nose cone. Fins survived Mach 1.4, but they're still going to ask you about fin flutter. So
Yep.
make sure you can talk about your fin flutter.
Yep. So they've got a factor of safety of 1.52 at going Mach 2. They've got 12 layers of 200 GSM carbon fiber on either side of a 3.1 mil thick carbon fiber twill fin plate. And we've tailored the laminate so that the directions of the unidirectional is all in the -45 and 90-degree angles to get maximum bending strength. Yeah, most of them, not all, but for maximum bending strength during the tip to tip.
Okay. Very good. I don't have a problem with that. You seem to be able to speak to that fairly well. So the safety reviewers on site will be pleased with that.
Yep.
Harnesses. Talk to me about recovery.
Yes, so that's in this box here. I'll get Caleb to pull it out. So we've got a 8,600 pound braided Kevlar PTFE coated recovery harness. It's got I think it's a 27-foot, 8.2 meter length that goes during the first deployment so that the nose cone is well away from the booster. And then another 4.2 meter length once the tender descender, our SRAD tender descenders pop. There's another 4.2 meters of length there for when the main comes out.
Okay.
The drogue and main chute are kept in Kevlar fireproof bags. And so
No mix.
they're not Nomex, they're Kevlar. The bag for the main chute has a stiffener sewn in. Because previously, on previous iterations of this recovery system, the parachute, we had main at apogee several times, and one of the causes of that was the bag bent around, and then the parachute, it rotated, and the parachute was able to pull out, so that's what the stiffener's for.
Okay.
Last year at comp, we had an M8 threaded rod, and that got bent. So we've put an M12 threaded rod in now, and it did not bend this time. And then we've got I'll talk about our primary charges first. So we use 2 ejection cups inside the payload bay. And so our main charge is our primary drogue charge is a 5.8 gram black powder charge, and our backup charge is 7.2 grams. And so that was sized after doing a bunch of ground testing, including in a vacuum chamber, to deal with the pressure differential. And the 5.8 gram charge we know will go as it has. Don't think we've had this backup charge for drogue deployment pop because the main has done it every time, but the backup charge will definitely be able to separate the nose cone.
Okay.
And then we've got our tender descenders, which is 2 in series. The quick links attach to them as Caleb is kind of showing you now. The primary has a 0.22 gram black powder charge, and the backup has a 0.25 gram charge, which is more than enough to separate the tender descenders.
Well, you said you've already flight tested this, right? Like
Yes,
this is
yeah. So this recovery system has been successfully flight tested 5 times. And we've had 2 consecutive successful flights without main at apogee.
Okay.
Initially, there was a few issues with main at apogee. The first one was because we were sealing the tender descenders. The pressure differential was enough to pop out the pins. That was fixed, and then the second issue was the bag needed a stiffener.
I got you.
But it's successfully flight tested 5 times.
You fix your walk penalty.
Yeah. Pretty much. So up until our test launch before comp last year, the tender descenders being sealed had caused main at apogee every time. And then they diagnosed the issue, fixed that, but then the bag folded and we had another main at apogee. But at competition last year and since then, we've not had that issue.
Excellent. Excellent.
And the bottom of the recovery. So our drogue is an XL Apex drogue. A Spherachutes XL Apex drogue, which has a descent rate of somewhere.
Do you have actual? So I mean, if you've flown the thing, you should have some actual data that.
Yeah, we do have actual data. So I don't have the data on me.
That's okay.
Taylor does.
Yes, but be prepared to speak to these things.
Yep.
At the site. Make sure that.
Particularly with our main parachute, because the sim is because it's SRAD. The CD is not quite right, so the descent rate is quite close to the maximum. However, in all of our flights, it's read 4 to 5 feet per second slower than what it's simming at.
Oh, okay. So you get a better performance, slower descent.
Yeah, we
speed.
get a slower descent. Yeah, we've been conservative with the drag coefficient on it due to it being SRAD.
Perfect. Well, I mean, again, that's the type of thing that you can, discuss with the folks on site. The tubes are, I'm sorry, I'm going to shift your tubes? Are those SRAT or COTS?
Our tube are COTS. We've got a manufacturer in New Zealand that does them. The booster is fiber wound carbon, 1.8 mil thick. And the payload bay is fiberglass, because when we were designing this rocket, we were potentially going to have live telemetry out of our payload.
But we're not doing that.
We're not doing that anymore, but the payload tube is still fiberglass.
The payload tube is built and it works, so you're
Yep.
flying it.
Yep.
That's a fairly common Rocketeer optimization pattern.
Yeah. Yeah, so the recovery harness connects through a bulkhead in the payload bay. On either side of that bulkhead are two 20mm offcuts of the coupler tube for stopper rings. They're screwed through with 6 screws on either side, which are then epoxied, as well as a bunch of epoxy around the outside.
Oh wow! So you've got a ring behind that plate that is
So the ring behind the plate is helping constrain the payload axially.
right. Okay.
Thomas can just show you now.
It's a bit hard to see down there.
Oh, I see it great. You're doing a great job. I totally get what you're going after here and how you're doing it. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
And the Thomas, if you just have a look at this, the top of the harness is connected through an eyebolt onto the avionics sled. That is connected into some T-nuts in the bulkhead inside the nose cone. And so they'll be Loctited as well. And so the load from recovery is transferred into that bulkhead, and that is like a 70mm tube in there that the sled slides into. And so that bulkhead has both got an epoxy fillet as well as some bolts through it that have had some unidirectional single roving carbon fiber epoxied onto it to ensure that that joint doesn't come off. And then there's plenty of epoxy from that tube onto the actual nose cone itself.
Very nice.
As well as some screws up near the top of that tube, just to add an extra, like in case all of the epoxy fails, there's also screws that have a factor of safety of 4 on them there.
Nice. Okay, so you've flown these electronics before.
Yes. So we have bought new copies of our avionics because they were getting pretty old. But we've got two new featherweight GPS trackers, a new featherweight Blue Raven, and a Easy Mega.
And a what?
An Altimetrum Easy Mega.
Oh, an Easy Mega. Okay, so you're flying 2 different flight computers.
Yep, 2 different flight computers for main and backup.
Both of which you're familiar with and you have flown before.
Yes. Yep.
Perfect.
These are what we flew at our test launch recently.
Okay. Batteries. Talk to me about what kind of batteries and how you mount them.
So the featherweight, Thomas, if you bring your camera here, I've got the mounts here. They're mounted on some 3D printed plates with zip ties holding them down, as well as some of them have a little strip of alley tape as well.
Okay.
The batteries themselves, the featherweights use 2 400 milliamp hour 1S lipos, which are recommended and supplied by Featherweight. The Easy Mega uses an 850 milliamp hour 1S lipo, also recommended and supplied by the manufacturer to comply with the rules. The Blue Raven will use a high discharge alkaline 9-volt. Normally we would use lithium 9 volts, but it's in a rectangular casing, so we can't this year.
Okay. What direction is 9-volt mounted?
It is mounted vertically with the battery connector at the bottom.
Yay. People have listened to some of the things I've said at some point. Okay. Outstanding. And you like you said, you're going to zip tie and secure them additionally. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
There will be questions about that at safety review as well.
So they'll be zip tied. They're a very snug fit inside that 70mm tube anyway. So even if both zip ties fail, it's not coming out.
Yeah, the typical failure pattern, and I did it. Thankfully, I did it on a single deploy rocket to 2,500 feet or something like that. The rocket goes up and it fires the ejection charge, and then somewhere in the nose cone coming out or parachute deploying or whatever, pop the battery off of the connector. So
Yeah.
it does happen. I can tell you that from experience.
Yeah. Cool.
But sounds like you have done a pretty good job of mitigating. Mine was duct taping and a couple of zip.
Reminds me of my level 2.
Yes. So
Duct tape and zip ties.
some of those Rocketeer optimizations we spoke of.
Yep. Awesome. What is the next thing you want to cover?
Well, you've got the motor, we've got the thrust, we've got your rail buttons. Please tell me you're just buying rail buttons and not trying to build rail buttons.
No, yeah, we buy these rail buttons.
COTS rail button.
COTS rail buttons.
COTS rail, yay, COTS, yay. I mean, like for $5, like you shouldn't be designing
Yeah.
engineering rail buttons.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, then they're easy to replace if you need to. And
Yeah.
okay, you've tested it on a rail clearly if it's flown.
Yep.
Yep.
And we've got a spare set of rail buttons just in case with us in our
Perfect.
toolboxes as well.
Perfect. I don't know that I have a whole lot. Like I said, certain teams you can zip through these things pretty good. I've done reviews enough that I know where to look and where to dig. I'm not seeing anything that's a major red flag, especially when you've already flown it, right? Like, look, we want you to come to the event. We want you to have a good time. We want you, of course, to be safe and be able to fly your rocket. Those are our, overarching goals. And so we do need to make sure we do it safely. So I think there's a few items that I am typically asked to include, as a briefing. How many of you been to Spaceport before or been to the event?
2 of us have.
Okay.
We went last year.
Yeah, well, so one of the things that we always stress and we will re-stress and you will hear again is no energetics in the convention center.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. And then furthermore, do you guys have where you are staying secured? You got a hotel or something?
Yep. So we'll be staying at the NMSU dorms again this year.
Oh, outstanding.
We've already got that. Contract's been signed for all of that. So we're sorted there.
Outstanding. Keep in mind, no energetics in the dorms.
Yep.
Okay. So you're gonna have to figure that out. All right. Please don't be the person that causes that problem.
Yeah.
All right. Transportation visas, I don't think are typically terribly complicated, but
so we qualify under the ESTAs, so we've all already got those. We don't have to worry about that. Our flight's already booked and secured.
okay.
Our vehicles, we've got cars, and our supervisor's going to have a 4-wheel drive SUV as well.
All right. So it sounds like you got a lot of those logistics worked out. Which again, we want you to come and not be sleeping under a bridge somewhere, anything like that, right?
Yeah.
Let me see what else. A couple of important safety things out there in New Mexico, especially. There's 2 main things that hurt Rocketeers, and one of them is something that's really not obvious to a lot of people, and the other one is dehydration. Right?
Is the one that's not obvious long pants?
Snakes.
No.
Ah.
Nope. No. Where is your electronic mounted?
In the red nose cone.
How are you going to get to that?
The plan is a ladder.
People falling off ladders
Yep.
is the next. Okay. So it's really important to make sure you stay hydrated, and it's really important to make sure that you have an appropriately tall ladder, right? Don't be standing on the top rung of the thing, tiptoeing, reach for something, right? Get the right size ladder for the length of rocket that you have. That may mean you need to buy or bring a ladder, depending, right? There's or arrange ahead of time to make sure that Ezra has a ladder for you. Make sure that you've got at least one person holding the ladder while the other person is on the ladder. And then drink water, and then drink water. And actually, there was actually one team that said, well, we've got somebody designated as sort of the water timer person. And if you feel thirsty, So if you guys feel thirsty, you're already too late. You're behind the
Yeah.
water game. Okay. So every 30 minutes, you should have like a little timer. Everybody gets out there, they get excited. There's rockets going off. You got to work on your thing. Like it's real easy to get distracted and forget to drink water. So
Yep.
have some method of reminding yourself like every 30 minutes to drink a little bit of some fluid every 30 minutes.
They will tell you 1 liter per hour of water.
It's
1 liter
hard
an
to
hour?
drink a single,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a lot of pain.
it's a lot of water. Here's,
No, it's a lot of
Yeah.
sweating.
And sweating.
So-
So last year we had lots of cases of the small 500 ml water bottles, and so every half hour we were just sculling them and just making sure we had our water intake.
that's the appropriate way to do it, right? Is
Yeah.
small amounts of water more frequently than, oh no, it's an hour and a half. I need to swallow two liters of water. That's not going to go well. It's not gonna go well. Do you guys know how to tell if you are properly hydrated?
It's clear.
Well, I think you, if you're peeing clear, yes, that's a very good indicator.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the fact that if you're visiting the bathroom at all is the right sign, right? Every couple of
Yeah.
hours you should be at the porta potties.
Yeah.
Okay. We
Cool.
really want to have an event where we don't have someone suffer from dehydration. Like it's a very preventable.
Yeah.
easily
Because there
preventable.
was a few people last year that
Yes.
got that. So
But what happened is just like people faint and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions for me?
Anything else we should expect going into the safety review on conference day?
They'll very closely examine your harnesses. The team that I just looked at, they've got some really neat, unique stuff that they're going to be bringing this year in terms of recovery harness. They're borrowing some stuff from military parachute type of technologies and whatever, and it will be foreign technology to most of the flyers there.
Yeah.
Like the reviewers, right? Us old white guys that, that have done this for years, have never seen, the newfangled tech. And so it's not that it's wrong, it's just different. And
Yeah.
those types of things generate questions. So make sure that you're prepared to answer questions for things that deviate from the norm.
Yeah.
That's the best I can offer. So now, last question I've got is, does your flyer of record have any concerns?
I do not. They are
Excellent.
a very well prepared team.
Okay. So, hey, the flyer of record is good. I'm good.
Awesome.
So, all right, but that's it. That's all I got for you.
Cool.
Again, apologies for the mix up on the times.